been on a roller coaster ride since the beginning, since back in the fall when we heard that levy equalization was going to be on the table during that session in December. And we came out here in November 28th and we said, no, you got to fund education. And now we follow this all the way through teacher evaluations and fighting against charter schools and all of these things, and they're still alive. All the way until now on Friday when the devil we thought we knew turned into the devil we don't know so much when the budget was taken over in the Senate. Events have changed pretty quickly. Well, teachers in education have taken a beating throughout this process. Never before in my career have I seen such animosity toward public schools and teachers in the media, and the media's partners in the business world, with private foundation, and even the attitude of the Democratic administration in the White House and its neo-reform-minded Secretary of Education. The political landscape for education has shifted pretty dramatically, even since 2008. There's no clear advocate for public schools and teachers in the political system anymore. Although I think there are some individual members, like here in the 40th District, Chris Litton, Kevin Ranker, and Jeff Morris, they've at least tried on occasion to help us out on our issues. And I have to say thank you to them. For ed reformers, from ed reform to healthcare, powerful interests have inserted themselves into the debate, and their money has bought them the access to policymakers that we can only hope to have, even with the help of the big bad WEA. Education policy, and we're talking our children's education, was put up for sale this session to the highest bidder, and we didn't have enough money to get in on the deal. We have a few exceptions. With a few exceptions, powerful interests have even bought off the media, or so it seems, through their partnerships with TV, radio, and newspapers. For instance, try to get a positive piece about education that offers a counterpoint to the reform union-busting interest published in the Seattle Times, for instance. Sure, they've published a couple of opinion pieces, including one by David Ciorda, who tried to offer a counterpoint, but overwhelmingly the body of reporting and editorial writing in Seattle pretty much has been the talking points of the Gates Foundation and private business, who have their own agenda when it comes to ed reform and unions. Our local newspaper here in Skagit County, Skagit Valley, the Skagit Valley Herald, it attempts to cover education. I think it does a pretty good job of that, and it has given us a voice.
Right.
Otherwise, though, when listening to or reading stories in the media, I have to ask, one, what is the research that is informing public policy on education? Two, are the interests of the Gates Foundation, Boeing, and other private business leaders and groups whose opinions and agenda dominate news coverage of education necessarily good for public interest? And if we think so, how do we know that? If you cannot answer these questions from news coverage, then isn't it fair to say that the education coverage we've seen in the news is not adequate to inform the public? Teachers are shut out of the public debate and then told that they, as manifested through the WEA, are fighting for some status quo in which our students fail. That's absurd. And then when we try to stand up against this kind of accusation, we are labeled as uppity, as standing in the way. When is the coverage about how much WEA has worked in partnership with the state on meaningful and authentic reform in the TPEP process? When has that been covered? Increasingly, we are left with no option but to stage events like this one, just to be seen and heard. So here we are. We're fighting for our medical insurance. We are here to stop the waste of time and money that would go into having to build a whole new bureaucracy. And this is true. But really, in my opinion, what we're fighting for is our bargaining rights. For Democrats who think this is a step in the direction of universal health care, I'd like to see what their reasoning is, because I don't get it. No, this is about bargaining rights. This session has been an assault on our bargaining rights like we've never seen before. Charter schools, which could still come alive before it's all said and done. Money siphoned off from those struggling schools, charters, No bargained contract applies. Teacher evaluation. While we can still bargain some of it, our bargaining rights have been narrowed in teacher evaluations. Medical insurance. If this 6442 passes, we no longer can bargain any of it. Do you see a trend here? This is an election year in which the governor's mansion and majorities in the legislature are up for grabs. If we're not politically active this year, what do you think is in store for us when the new biennium begins in January and a new legislature and a new governor sits? I don't know. When you break it all down, it's not about improving student learning. It's not about saving some money on insurance. Those are smoke screens hiding what this is really about. And for me, what it comes down to is labor unions. And it got me thinking, why am I a member of the Washington Education Association, something people know as the WEA? Or more broadly, why am I in a labor organization? I'm not naive. I'm perfectly aware of some of the darker histories surrounding labor unions. And I'm aware of our current weaknesses. But I'm here to argue that the benefits to our society of organized labor in this country have far outweighed any of the negative effects of our weaknesses. This isn't new to any of us. This shouldn't be new to any of us, but think about this for a minute. If you enjoyed your time off this past weekend, you got it because of a labor union. If you have some peace of mind that comes with some medical insurance or other benefits, you got it because of a labor union. Children get to have a childhood unsullied by the drudgery of factory work because of unions. If you have a safe work environment and the prospect of improving that work environment, you got it with the help of labor unions. If you have due process procedure that helps protect you from being fired by someone who maybe just doesn't like you, you got it through a labor union. If you are a woman getting equal pay for equal work, labor unions were there to help. More people have access to the middle class and the American dream in the last 60 years because of unions. And I don't think it should come as a mystery to anybody that as labor unions have declined in this country, that a corresponding decline in the middle class and people's ability to reach the American dream has declined along with it.
Woo!
And what about the big bad WEA? How often have you heard these words? I love my son and daughter's teacher, but I hate that union. Am I right? Well, y'all took pictures of each other a moment ago, right? Look at that person standing next to you. Tell me what you see. You're seeing the WEA because we are the WEA. We are the ones standing out here in this weather, in this cold weather, trying to be heard in Olympia and the other Washington. We are the ones working in the classrooms every day. We are the ones who care for our students and their success. We are the ones who know what our students are facing when they leave our classroom and what they bring with them when they come back. We are the ones who reflect on our practice to try new things when what we tried the first time didn't quite get off the way we hoped. We are the ones grading the papers, putting up the bulletin boards, waiting at the copy machine on a Saturday afternoon. And as much as the media and ignorant politicians and businessmen who have no knowledge of what you do day after day say otherwise, we, ladies and gentlemen, we are the WEA. This image of a big, bad WEA is a straw man, a myth conjured up by people whose interests are not in the public interest, who would like nothing better than for you to put up and shut up and be afraid and alone. Because when you're afraid and alone, you're less likely to enter the debate. You're less likely to advocate for your own interests. You're less likely to challenge the notion that because certain people have enough money and influence, they should be able, on a whim, to control your profession without the interference of any of those pesky facts to the contrary that might complicate the issue for them. We're gathered here today specifically because the state wants to take away our ability to bargain our benefits. But this, along with the evaluations and the continuing possibility of charter school legislation, is a powerful shot over the bow that the fight is on. The fight is on over our ability to have a voice in our profession and how it works, as well as our ability to come together as one voice to advocate about our working conditions. What's left of labor unions in this country is the last line of defense against the fall of the middle class and the American dream, and those who say otherwise are either lying or misinformed. How soon those who rail against the unions today forget that it is the existence of union jobs by which the quality of their own jobs is measured. It's union jobs that set the standard in this country. So what do you think would happen if the unions no longer existed, as some in the political debate would like to see? We need to send a message to legislators that everyone should have an equal voice in the debate, and that the facts should trump special interests in policy making. So what are the facts for today's rally? Let me point them out to you. Fact: 6442 will create a whole new bureaucracy. Fact: this new bureaucracy will cost more money than is currently spent on member benefits. Fact: 6442 will lead to fewer benefits for all our stakeholders. Fact: 6442 will cost more out of pocket for everyone. Fact: 6442 puts part-time employees into unknowns about how they're going to be covered. Fact: 6442 shifts costs to you and your school district. Fact. And most importantly, in my humble opinion, 6442 takes away your ability to bargain your benefits. We say no to the language of 6442 in the state budget, and we ask our legislators to do the same. Call them, write them, let them know we're your constituents, and we say no to this. Please stay active as the prospect of a special session, which will cost the state even more money that could be spent on education. Please stay active, because if that becomes a reality and as we move into the elections this fall, we need to be active all the way through. Please be ready to continue our activism here today. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for all your efforts.